Attention!
Welcome to the Film Mages Podcast, where the popcorn is our ammunition, the couch is our foxhole, and the cinema is our place of worship.
Now let me see your war face. Ah!
Hello. Good morning.
Good morrow.
Film Majors
God.
listeners.
Yeah, hello everyone. Welcome to the Film Majors. I am Zach.
I'm Mick.
I'm
Taking a drink of
Alexis.
water.
Yeah, this is the first time we've had a morning record
I like
session
it.
in a while. I feel awake.
Yeah.
I feel good. I feel alert.
I was afraid after having like close to 2 bottles of Prosecco last night that I wasn't going to be good for this, but I had food, I drank water, I got good sleep. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling
You
fresh.
had 2 bottles of Prosecco?
I shared 2 bottles of
Dude,
Prosecco.
what's going on?
Nice. Well, what is going on? I didn't watch any movies from the last time that we recorded. I love going to like live events because then I yell so much or I laugh so much that my voice like the next day is like really
deep and sexy.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, no. If you are an LA listener, you'll know how far back this podcast that we're recording right now was done because Zach and I, we were both lucky. We got to see John Mulaney last night at the Hollywood Bowl.
Yeah,
Shut
we
the fuck
separately. Yeah, we separately. We did not know that we both got tickets for this.
Yeah, we both have really lovely partners.
Yeah. So last week I was on Instagram and I was like, "Oh, what's this everybody's in LA thing that John Mulaney just posted about?" And Sloan was like, "He's doing shows," and I was like, "Oh, well, I don't really have money to be spending on going to a Mulaney show." And she was like, "Oh, well, let's look at how cheap tickets are." And, you know, if you sat far back enough, tickets, not too bad.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? A few years ago, I got tickets to go see John Mulaney at the Hollywood Bowl. And then I got COVID right before I could go. So I had to give my tickets away because I didn't get insurance. So I gave them to our first ever Film Majors guest, Simon Ludke, and his now wife.
Wow.
Yeah, because I'm a good guy.
Nice.
Also because I could not get rid of them. So it was nice to get a little redemption, and yeah, go see Mulaney last night.
Yeah.
Next night.
Yeah.
Mick and I did not meet up. They take your phones, so we couldn't.
Which was
coordinate.
new, which makes
Yeah.
sense because they were recording this for Netflix.
Yeah.
But it
they're
was a really
recording it
good
for
time.
Netflix?
Yeah. So they took
that's
everyone's
right.
devices. But it was a really good time. Yeah, my lovely partner, she said, "Hey, do you want to go see Bill Burr at the Hollywood Bowl Friday night?" And I said, "I'm so sorry, I'm recording an episode of the podcast." She's like, "Fuck that, dumb." Oh, the next
Bullshit.
night they're doing John Mulaney, and I've already seen Bill Burr live. I've never seen John Mulaney live, and that's been on my bucket list for a very long time. And yeah, it was an early birthday gift, so I'm very, very, very thankful.
You know, by the time it'll be the next episode.
Yeah.
That's closer to the Mick birthday.
The Mick birthday.
Or maybe even the one after that.
No,
Because the one after that
it's
is
our next episode.
literally the last day of May, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So yeah, a preemptive happy birthday to you, Mick.
Thank you.
But yeah, I had a blast. Nick Kroll showed up as an opener.
Nice.
He was hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was a blast. But I did see a film.
What did you see?
Immediately after our last recording session, because we may or may not be recording episodes 2 and 3 of Boat Month Part 2 days apart, I watched a little movie called Bad Biology.
Frank Henenlotter.
Yes.
And how was that?
I had a fun time.
I bet you did.
So, if you don't know who Frank Henenlotter is, I have invoked him on this podcast before, but you may be a new listener, and if so, hello.
If we
Or you
invoke him
just
enough, we're
don't
going to
listen
conjure
like
him.
me, because I'm going to need you to tell me again.
Yeah.
You are here!
Yeah.
You don't listen actively in the moment.
No. Here's the thing. Alexis, I give her credit. She listens, but then she forgets.
Yeah. I think it's part of the
what?
That's more accurate.
If you remembered every single bullshit thing I said about movies, I'd be actively worried for you.
You don't even remember all the bullshit things you say about movies.
No, that's why I say them so many times.
Exactly.
Frank Henenlotter is an exploitation director who he refers to himself as an exploitation filmmaker rather than a horror filmmaker. But he came up in the 80s with the cult film Basket Case, which,
Classic.
if you have seen Malignant, it owes a lot to Basket Case. He also made Brain Damage and a personal favorite of me and Mick's, Frankenhooker.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Bad Biology.
Really quickly, when I first met my now girlfriend, Sam, I knew that we were going to really hit it off when she came to set one day wearing a Frankenhooker t-shirt.
Oh, fuck
So
yeah.
that's when I knew. I was like, oh, this girl's something special. Sorry, continue.
But Bad Biology is, I believe, to date, Frank Henenlotter's most recent exploitation movie. It came out in 2008. It is about a woman with 7 clitorises and a man with a giant dick that has a mind of its own. It is I would say, of his movies, it veers the furthest from horror and the closest to smut. Mm-hmm. It is an insane movie. It's very funny. Apparently, he invited John Waters to the first screening of it and asked him what he thought. And John Waters said he liked it, but it was just so dirty. And
That's hilarious.
If you can make John Waters say your movie is dirty, you have done your job as an exploitation filmmaker.
LOL.
But yeah, if you are sensitive to depictions of sex and to a lesser extent violence, there's less violence than sex in Bad Biology.
Yeah, I imagine, because when you played it, you played it after we recorded our last episode.
Yeah, you were trying to go to bed.
I was trying to go. I was like, I'm going to go to bed, and I am trying to sleep. I'm trying to read.
Your mistake.
It's just an hour and 20 minutes of just humping and moaning and fucking that I'm hearing coming from the living room, and then also you're watching the movie.
Yeah. Nice.
So there was also a lot of that going on too.
Good one, buddy.
But yeah, it just sounded like an hour and 20 minutes. I'm saying hour 20 because it's an hour and 25, but that's probably like credits.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
An hour and 20 of just humping and fucking. So I can't imagine what the movie really is, but I can kind of picture it, that it's just complete, just balls to the wall, literally, pun intended, smut.
It is,
and I'm intrigued.
Very funny. It's probably my least favorite of Henenlotter's movies, but it's I love the man. I think he Edwin referred to him as like David Cronenberg on Goofy mode, and
which is apt.
I think that's an apt description because he is interested in some very similar thematic stuff. But the way he is going about it is just in the silliest, worst possible taste.
Yeah.
And I commend him for that. Low key, I'm just going to put this out here now. Frank Henenlotter feels like about the level of filmmaker in terms of like notoriety that we could probably get on this show.
I would love to have him on
He is still alive. He is in his 70s. I'm just, I think I'm going to put that out here now. And as, the year or the years progress, I'm going to just start putting out feelers to see if I can get Frank on the film majors.
This is called manifesting.
Indeed. So, post on wherever you post on social media, # make Frank a film major.
Where are you, Frank?
Frankie. I low-key feel like I could message his Facebook page and he'd probably respond.
Probably.
Anyways, so that is the film that I watched, and that's the live event I went to.
Hey, Alexis.
What's happened to you since we last recorded?
I saw the movie The Idea of You.
Oh, I am probably going to watch that at some point. How was it?
I would say that it is like a 3-star movie, but I gave it an extra half star because I had so much fun cracking jokes all throughout it while I watched it with my sister. Like, we were just like a giggling mess. And I think that part of it is kind of the rhetoric of the internet right now, since it dropped, I think, like a week or so ago. People have already like made some like a few videos like kind of joking about it, and you know how hot Anne Hathaway is to be playing like a quote unquote dowdy mother type, you know, like, or, and it's so funny because it's like she's not really portrayed in the movie to be dowdy at all, but she acts like her life is over because she's 40 for like parts of it. And I just found it very funny because I'm like, I guess this movie just proves that, you know, as long as you are as hot as a movie star, you too can have an international pop star. Like, thanks for giving all the moms everywhere hope, Anne Hathaway.
Totally. Yeah, if you look like Anne Hathaway, you've got a shot.
Yeah.
Well, I probably will end up seeing that sometime in the next week.
I have some friends that worked on that because they shot that in Atlanta, I think.
One of my favorite videos is this girl. I think her name is like Kendra, something like that. And she says that this movie uses like one of her favorite like rom-com tropes. And I kind of have to agree. It's the hottie with a secret song in their heart. And it's, you know, some sort of like, you know, the romantic lead is a musician, and they have some sort of a song that they start to play. And as it's, you know, like you hear like maybe a few notes, a couple chords, and then all of a sudden here comes the main romantic lead, right? To be like, oh, I love this song. What is it? And they're like, oh, my label doesn't love it. And they're like, oh, well, I like it. And then eventually you do hear the song, and it's like not great because it's never great. Like none of the songs in any of these movies that are about musicians are ever that good unless you're Lady Gaga.
This is
correct.
This is a topic that I want to discuss at some point on this podcast is pieces of music in movies that actually live up to the narrative hype
that's around it.
I would say the entire Walk Hard the Dewey Cox soundtrack.
Of course.
I listen to that. Those are good songs. Those are good fucking songs.
That's how I feel about Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
Those are absolutely fantastic pieces of music.
I don't know if I have something I can think of right now, but definitely the end of School of Rock. That song still fucking slaps. Yeah. Slaps hella hard.
That's a perfect example, actually. That's just a good piece of music.
Well, you know,
it's Tenacious D, so, you know, what are you going to do?
I will earmark this as a big topic for when we eventually talk about Walk Hard.
Oh, yeah. You know, what's so funny is that I think I hadn't ever seen Walk Hard before you showed me Walk Hard. And since then, I hung out with people who literally do the duet from that movie as their, like, karaoke song. Nice. Like, two guys do it together as, like, their karaoke song together. And I don't know, there's just something about hearing two guys do it.
Beat
that
off
song.
All my demons.
Nice.
So good, so fun, and obviously it wouldn't be as funny to me if I didn't already know where it came from. So thank you, Zach.
Of course, it's my mission in life to show as many people Walk Hard the Dewey Cox story as possible. So I'm happy that enriched your life.
Indeed.
Well,
trying to think here. Did I do anything else? I'm like, no, I tried to go to a metal show yesterday, but it was raining and I didn't wear my Docs. So my Converse got wet and I was sad and cold. So I left.
Sad.
Sad.
Was it new metal?
Huh?
Was it new metal?
No, it wasn't new metal. And it actually, like, I'm not quite sure that it was, like, fully. It was, like, a little mini festival. And so the only band that I really got to see was kind of giving, like, I want to say, like, Dio and, like, kind of like that almost, like, hair metal, the metal of the 80s that's not quite metal anymore, you know?
Right, yeah.
It's more just, like, hard rock to us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
but it was fun.
Okay.
And they even like had like long, like curly hair, like they were in like the late 70s, early 80s. And I was
They're a
like,
hair
yeah, get
band.
it, girls.
Hell yeah.
They were guys, but I just said girls, whatever.
Okay, so you're a good example of that is Europe. Like, would you say a group like Europe? Like, they're the ones that did the final countdown, Rock the Night, Time Has Come?
Yeah, a little bit,
Where,
yeah.
Like, that's not metal.
No.
But we all kind of love it, you know?
Yeah.
That's like one of those songs where if it comes on and there are other people in the car with you, you're like, ugh, it's trash. But if you're by yourself, you fucking turn that shit up and you sing along.
It's the final countdown.
Yeah, it's like Journey or Bon Jovi.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, that's one of my favorite things to think about is just how much music has changed to where like what people thought was like straight up demonic metal in the 80s, like you're literally worshiping Satan because you listen to this. It's just so, it's like honestly like it's like watered down now to us.
Yeah, like ABBA. Devil
Mick,
worshipping
that's
music.
just you. You're the only one who thinks that.
You're all heathens.
Hellfire shall be your reward. That's my impression of Mick Munyai.
That's pretty good.
Thank you.
I say that in my sleep sometimes.
Yeah, I've heard you.
It's a little weird. Well, I don't really have anything else going on in life.
This could be a short one.
It could be a short one. I had my music lesson again yesterday, and let me tell you, that shit makes me so happy.
Your what lesson?
My music lesson.
Oh,
You're taking music lessons?
You
Did
never
I not
told
tell
us
you
that.
guys?
I've never mentioned it once.
Okay, so I want to say like 4 or 5 weeks ago, I started doing vocal lessons again. So like just kind of like, I don't know, coming up with like a repertoire. Like I've never really trained like in musical theater. I've only trained in like classical singing when I did. So I'm doing like some songs from some operas, learning a couple new ones, kind of doing some ones I already knew. And then I've been doing some musical theater repertoire from like the last 5 years. The musical is called The Last 5 Years.
Yeah. Well, Alexis, I'm proud of you.
I'm not.
You know,
proud of
Mick is a hater.
Yeah. I mean, for you, it's great that you're doing something that's stimulating. I just wish it wasn't musical theater.
It's not all musical
you sound
theater.
like
Some
my
of it's,
dad when I was in
opera.
middle school.
And can I just say that, like, me and my music teacher, sometimes I think we're just, like, gabbing a little bit before the lesson. And we were like, kind of talking about, like, Mozart, because, you know, I was in Amadeus, and my music that's how I met my music teacher, was he was helping us do, like, the Italian pronunciation throughout the play. And he's also in, like, some of the musical theater stuff around. Anyways, blah, blah, blah. We were talking about how Mozart was just, like, super ahead of his time because his stories are so funny still, even to like a modern audience. 2 of the songs I'm working on are this woman Despina, and she's like a servant, but she's like kind of like telling these girls in this one aria about like, you know, like a girl of 15 needs to know like basically how to finesse men, you know, like you must know where the devil keeps his tail. And I was like, oh, this woman is literally talking about a man's cock, like in an opera from like the late 1700s. You know, I don't know.
Okay. Also, potentially dating this episode. Speaking of music, the one other thing I have been up to is enjoying all of the new Kendrick Lamar music.
Oh, the diss tracks.
The whole disses with Drake and Kendrick.
I do not, as I've made abundantly clear on this podcast before, but again, new listeners, hello. I am not really at all plugged into the music world. There is exactly one musician who, when he puts out new music, I listen to all of it, and that's Kendrick Lamar.
I thought you were going to say Bo Burnham.
No, he's a comedian. So
Whatever.
there was a long gap between new Kendrick music, which is, allowed me to not be plugged into the music scene. Because Damn came out in 2017.
Yeah.
And Mr. Morale came out in 2022. So it's 5 years between Kendrick putting out new music. He is hating on Drake so hard that he's put out like 5 fucking songs in like a couple weeks, a week. He has become so prolific through his hatred of Drake. So I'm all for it. The latest song that I listened to is Not Like Us. Oh my god. He's really going in on the man. The lyric, he's trying to hit a chord, but it's probably A minor.
LOL.
He's just full-blown calling Drake a pedophile.
That's great. That's clever.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's all good, but we're not the music majors.
We are not the music
here.
majors.
We are the film majors.
We are the film majors.
In
You're
fact,
right.
I heard from someone that about our episode saying that, usually I stop listening after the what's going on. I never usually get to the main topic.
Who said that?
I'm not going to name names, but...
Who is it?
I'm not going to name names.
Name the name.
So they just like
But,
hearing us shoot the shit then?
Or they get sick of hearing us shoot the shit.
They kind of get sick of it. They're like, well, okay, if you're not going to talk about the movie, then I guess that's it.
Well, the
Oh my
movie's
God.
like the
We
movie
do
doesn't come until like the final act. Are we a bad movie because we wait for the juicy stuff for the final act?
Yeah, we're not a well-structured film.
I don't know. I think we warm up into it.
But if it's a hangout movie, if it's a day-in-the-life movie...
This is a hangout film. It's a hangout podcast.
Maybe stick around.
Yeah.
Hey,
we're
whoever
a
you
very
are,
dazed and
fuck
confused
you.
podcast.
I'm coming after you.
All right, folks. Well,
Name the name, Mick.
let's hop out of what's going on.
Yeah.
All right. So, we are officially halfway through the best, the most glorious movie month that we have here on this show. We are halfway through Boat Month.
Oh my God, look at it.
You have to stand in awe of its majesty.
Look at it crest over those waves.
It's fantastic.
Oh, my
now,
feet are wet.
For
Everything's wet.
For this episode,
I'm all wet.
we are talking about, speaking of wet, our big topic today is who are some of our favorite movie alkies? Now, that can be like a character, that can be actors that we know that were quite, partial to the bottle before making a movie or a scene. Who are some of our favorite alcoholics or just people that love drinking? And again, they sacrifice their bodies, and by God, we love them for it.
Well, one that just came to mind, I don't know if he fully counts as an alcoholic, but when we meet him, he's hungover, is Henry Gondorf from The Sting.
Yes.
We meet
Absolutely.
him.
Good
Best
pick.
played by Paul Newman. He's hammered. Robert Redford drags him into a shower, kind of cleans him up a little bit. He's sitting there in the bathtub with all his clothes on.
Luther said you could teach me something.
I already know how to drink. Exactly. And
Have you had breakfast yet, or do you already know how to eat? Oh, God, the banter.
Yeah,
So good.
The Sting's phenomenal. But there's also a phenomenal sequence where he is pretending to be drunk.
That's one of the best drunk performances ever at the poker game.
Yeah, it's literally a character putting on a drunk performance.
Yes.
But yeah, it's such a funny scene.
That'd be real nice to you, Mr. Lonegan.
Yeah, it keeps fucking up Robert Shaw's character's name.
Lonegan. Doyle Lonegan.
You fella. So yeah, that's where I'll get us started out on our
really good
cinematic
good pick.
alky list. Thank you. It literally just came to me.
Nice. Alexis, you have any favorite cinema alkies?
I was really thinking about Jackie Chan in The Legend of Drunken Master.
Yes, good pick.
Yeah.
Who, again, is he an alcoholic or does he just use alcohol
Listen,
to amplify his
if we
powers?
have to give an alcoholic,
That's what I always tell people.
mine would.
Yeah, exactly.
One of mine is definitely Miss Hannigan from Annie, but the one that came out in I think the 80s because it's Carol Burnett, and
Oh, good.
yeah, Carol Burnett, just huge personality, and she just, she hates the fucking orphans. She's literally making gin in her bathtub in like crusty lingerie, and she's like making the kids like sweep the floors and wash everything while she just lounges around and talks about how she just wished she could have a man nibbling on her ears and...
we all?
I respect the woman.
Wow.
Nice. Yeah, but really, not to brush over the fantastic pick, but yeah, Jackie Chan from The Legend Drunken Master, listen to our episode, Drunken Master 2.
Yeah. Listen, as his father says, it is acceptable to drink a little to fight crime. And that's also what I say, 4 or 5 drinks in. This is acceptable to drink a little, fight crime.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's just so funny watching Jackie Chan just like drink more and more and more.
And get so red.
He gets so strong, and because you're so drunk, you can't really feel getting punched or kicked in the face as much, and that just kind of invigorates you, and so he becomes a fucking master of kung fu.
It's incredible.
It's I think the best fight movies ever made.
It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. I have to say, this is not a major actor. To me, he's a major actor, but not a major character. But in the movie 1993's Tombstone, you have Stephen Lang's character, Ike Clanton.
Boy. There we go. Slang.
We love slang.
Never seen that movie.
It's a good movie.
It is a good movie.
I think you'd like it.
It was on the list that I was looking up.
It's not a masterpiece, but yeah, Stephen Lang, slang. He famously, to play the town drunkard Ike Clanton, would be absolutely plastered in real life for every one of his scenes. And so that's one of the fun bits about watching Tombstone is every time Ike shows up, and you see Slang just like completely Slang is slurring his words. That's because he is, I don't know how many whiskeys deep.
He's soused.
Damn.
He is completely soused. A lot of his co-stars mentioned just how he really reeked in that movie. Like when the town drunkard character showed up, you're like, oh my God, the town drunkard is here.
Oh no. It's adding a real verisimilitude to the picture.
Yes, which, another one of his co-stars, Billy Bob Thornton, who played Johnny Tyler, he's a shitty character, but he did the same thing for Bad Santa, which is a movie I've never seen and never will.
I've never seen that movie, but like I've
bad.
seen clips of it so many times.
Yeah, he famously because he plays an alcoholic.
Yeah,
he's a alky mall Santa.
Yeah,
but for one scene in Bad Santa, he actually did get really fucked up, and he says he regrets because he just doesn't remember it.
Yeah.
And he watches the footage going, well, that wasn't worth it. It's a scene, if you're familiar with Bad Santa, it's the scene where you see him coming up the escalator and he's just completely collapsed on the escalator and his head just like keeps hitting the steps and he gets up and collapses onto a reindeer. That's him just actually blackout drunk. And that's all they got from him that day. Yeah. It's not...
Oftentimes, actually getting drunk for a drunk scene, I feel like it's not worth it.
Well, it's as Peter O'Toole said, it's called acting, my dear boy.
Or as Oliver Reed said, I'm drunk right now.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to shout out what I think is the great contemporary drunk performance. And that is, he's literally me, Ryan Gosling, as Holland March in The Nice Guys.
Yes.
There is a scene, he both gets a scene where he's actually fucking plastered and a scene where he's pretending to be drunk, the character.
Which, you mean Ryan Gosling's actually plastered?
No, I mean the character.
So I was like, tell me the scene.
The scene where Holland March is actually drunk is when they go to the party at Sid Shattuck, the porn king's house, and there are complimentary drinks.
Yeah.
And Holland March is just wandering around the party, just continuing to drink.
Yeah.
And he tries to question the some ladies at the bar about the whereabouts of the girl he's looking for. Mm-hmm. And he goes, "Hi there. Her name's Amelia. Answers to the call of the wild. So if you see me, then tell me my name."
Nice.
It is. And then towards the end of that scene where he is soaking wet, he's met back up with Russell Crowe's character. And Russell Crowe's like, "Why are you wet?" And he's like, "I was in the pool." "You were in the pool? What were you doing in the pool?" "I was questioning the mermaids." "What were you doing?" "Well, I was working."
I love the end of that film too, where Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling are at the bar.
Oh my God! Yeah,
And
Crowe does some great drunk acting too.
I love it where he's like, "Well, at least you're drinking again," and Russell Crowe goes, "Yeah." Like you had just made like a genuinely good point. Like, "Hey man, at least you still got your health." You're like, "Yeah."
Yeah. And then he amuses Russell Crowe with the bad breath tie trick, and Russell Crowe just starts like
great.
dying laughing. Give us a sequel to The Nice Guys. I say this probably every other episode. Where is my sequel to The Nice Guys?
After watching The Sympathizer, I kind of want, if they're going to do a sequel to The Nice Guys, I kind of want RDJ to be the baddie in The Nice Guys too.
Good.
Just reunite Shane Black, bring back Robert Downey Jr., because that shit would be so funny.
It would be fucking killer. It would be killer.
Yeah.
Give us The Nice Guys 2.
I have
yesterday.
Alexis, do you have another pick?
Yeah, I can think of one that I think kind of half fits, but Bridget Jones from Bridget Jones's Diary. Like, I know she's not technically an alcoholic, but she starts the whole first bit of the movie off talking about how she needs to give up drinking because it's obviously a problem for her. But the whole opening scene is just her, like, shit-faced, hella sad in her living room doing, like, a fucking drum solo to All By Myself. And then she talks about how I have to, like, that's how she starts the diary, is like, "Oh, I gotta change my life because I can't be on New Year's next year listening to sad FM, easy listening for over 30s. And, aspirations for all of us. And another favorite part of that movie is when she goes out with her friends and she's like, "At least now that I'm in my 30s, I can hold my drink." And then she gets out of the cab and literally falls onto the fucking sidewalk. And then her friends are just like, "Are you all right, Bridget?" And she's like, and she's fine. Go on. And they just like leave her there on the sidewalk.
Classic. I love that movie. Brutal. That kind of reminds me, this might sound like a television thing, but there are movies of it, so it counts. But right now there is a resurgence of popularity of Sex and the City because they recently put the show back on, so everyone is rewatching it. I never grew up watching Sex and the City, but
Carrie's
my partner
fucking annoying.
My partner's a really big fan of the show, and so it's been on a lot, like when I go over. And she's been talking about kind of the conversations happening online about people that have been longtime fans of the show or the movies and have been rewatching it. And they're like, "Oh, they're just alcoholics." That's really like this whole lifestyle that we've long aspired to have. Like, oh, they're just drunk all the time.
Just
Speaking of drunk all the time, I have a great Robert Zemeckis film.
I was going to bring it up.
Okay, take it away.
Oh, might be a different Zemeckis film, actually. I was going to talk about Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
I was going to talk about Flight.
I figured you were going to talk about Flight, but Eddie Valiant in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, a phenomenal cinematic drunk, and gets his, wonderful kind of getting off the sauce moment when he's about to go into Toontown and he opens his case of cartoon bullets. And they're like, "Where you been, Eddie?" And fucking Bob Hoskins giving, in my opinion, the best performance of, 1988? Just goes, "Drunk." He's like, it's so dramatic. He's so good. That is just a great performance. But shouts out Eddie Valiant. Flight, man.
Flight, yes. On the other end of the spectrum with the Robert Zemeckis movie about alcoholism. I don't know if Toontown is about alcoholism. But
Hey, listen, that's Eddie's journey.
Denzel Washington, I think, gives one of the best drunk performances I've ever seen. That's not a fun alcoholic movie. That is 100% a movie about how damaging alcohol could be, and having that addiction can just like destroy facets of your life and your relationships and your whole career. And sometimes I'll be scrolling on YouTube and I'll just see a clip from Flight and I'll watch it. And Denzel Washington always just fucking blows me away by how good and tragic his performance is in that. So if you're ever in the mood for a really bad time about addiction, and this is not a good date night movie, as I found out in high school, especially when your date had a very personal relationship with alcoholism, which I did not know. And I didn't know that Flight was about alcoholism. We've talked about this before in a previous episode, worst date night movies. I was like, what'd you think of the movie? She's burst into tears.
Pair it with Leaving Las Vegas.
Yeah, okay, that's another one. Yeah.
Talk about harrowing alcoholic performances.
Alcoholics are not always fun, but sometimes
They're very fun.
they're very fun. And my last pick that I'm going to do a shout out to is very relevant to the film that we're talking about. One of my all-time favorite on-screen alkies is Captain Jack Sparrow.
Yep.
Yeah.
He just, man, his blood is just it's just seawater and rum.
Yeah, he's got some blood in his alcohol.
He literally looks like he's dressed like Captain Morgan. He looks like a logo of a very popular rum brand. And there's that famous scene where they're on an island in the first Pirates of the Caribbean film with Elizabeth Turner, and she believes that alcohol will make even the finest gentlemen into scoundrels, and overnight disposes of all of the alcohol, which is why we get the famous line that we quote all the time in life for some reason. Why is the rum gone?
We don't need to dig into why we quote it.
Yeah, exactly. Which is a tremendous segue into today's, I think, fantastic film, 1951's The African Queen, directed by John Huston. This is our first John Huston film.
Indeed. Also, by the way, to the scoundrel who fucking dips out after what's going on, Spotify has started doing a thing where it kind of like demarcates sections of the episode. So you can actually skip right to the movie if you don't want to hear our valuable thoughts about all the films we're watching, you sack of fucking shit.
It might be someone very close to me. So.
Is it your girlfriend?
No.
Oh, okay.
But it could be. So I'm gonna have to. You might have to amend your statements there, buddy boy.
I cannot tell a lie.
I think you may have just done, buddy. So 1951's The African Queen stars one of the filmmakers' favorites, Katharine Hepburn, and one of my personal favorites, Humphrey Bogart. Here is the synopsis according to Google. After religious spinsters, Katharine Hepburn's missionary brother is killed in World War I German Africa. Dissolute steamer captain Humphrey Bogart offers her safe passage. She's not satisfied, so she persuades him to destroy a German gunboat. The two spend most of their time fighting with each other rather than the Germans. Time alone on the river leads to love. This is a very passive-aggressive synopsis. Listen to that. The two spend most of their time fighting with each other rather than the Germans, so I guess time alone on the river leads to love? Fuck you, Google. This is a good film. But the reason I mention this, leading from Pirates of the Caribbean, is because that whole bit about why is the rum gone and Elizabeth Turner destroying all of his precious booze is directly lifted from the movie. And the writers themselves have said that we are paying homage to John Huston's The African Queen when they did that. So that famous Why is the Rum Gone has this movie to thank.
Wow.
As inspiration. So, folks, how did we feel about the movie? Was it a first-time watch? Do we love it? Is it a childhood favorite? What's your relationship?
I love when you guys look at me at the same time. I have your full attention. to say that I did actually
3.
quite enjoy this movie, and it was
You
a
did?
first time watch for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah.
well, I mean, what's there not to love about Katharine Hepburn and fucking a dirty fucking swamp ass Humphrey Bogart? You know it. You know he did. You know that's what was going on.
He smells crazy.
Yeah.
I actually don't know if I've seen him in anything other than Casablanca. I'm like trying to think of like what other movies I would have seen him in.
A cinema classic I still haven't seen.
So I want to ping off of that, Alexis, because I have seen Humphrey Bogart in The Maltese Falcon, which was both him and John Huston's kind of breakout movie.
Correct.
It was John Huston's first movie. I don't know if it was Bogey's. I've seen him in that. I've seen Casablanca. I've seen Sabrina.
Nice.
Sabrina.
and-
Yes. Okay.
I think I started watching The Big Sleep before we did The Big Lebowski.
That's
Go
right,
back
that's
and
a
listen,
Bogart
and
film.
I fell asleep. I have never really been a very big Humphrey Bogart fan. I never really got why he was such a movie star. His detective performance. Casablanca is a good movie, but it's been a while since I've seen it, so maybe I'd like it more on a rewatch. But I always just found him sort of stiff, and I never really got it. I love him in this movie, and I loved this movie. This movie, I was like, okay, Humphrey fucking Bogart is doing it for me. Katharine Hepburn is bringing it, and credit to Bogey, because as we'll get into, I watched a good chunk of the making of documentary for this movie, and Humphrey Bogart was a big part of the reason why Katharine Hepburn signed onto this movie, because John Huston got attached and asked Humphrey Bogart to be a part of this. This is based on a book, and the rights to kind of
C.S.
bounced
Lewis,
around
yeah.
Hollywood for a while. No, it wasn't C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis wrote the Chronicles of Narnia. But
Pretty
this,
sure it was.
It was C.S. something, but it wasn't C.S. Lewis.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, C.S. Forrester.
But yeah, the rights to this book bounced around Hollywood for a while. John Huston got them, and brought Bogart on and was like, who's an actress who you've never worked with before? And he was like, oh, Katharine Hepburn. I think that it would be fun to be in a movie with her. And Sam Spiegel, the producer, approached her and was like, do you want to do this movie? John Huston's directing, Humphrey Bogart's in. And she's like, yes. On those two things, yes. So, yeah, I thought this was a fucking blast. I really, really loved it. This is one of my favorite first time watches, both for the podcast and this year.
Tight. Yeah. Well, I'm really pleasantly surprised that you both like this movie. I was a little worried that you guys were going to think this is kind of a dry, stingy old classic. But I'm glad you guys appreciate it the way I do.
You know what's one of I think that this may be a secret sauce, but one of my favorite tropes is uptight spinster and dirty nasty scoundrel.
That's a fantastic pairing, and this is like perhaps the best example of it. Yeah. So my relationship to this film, I actually have very fond memories of it. I did not grow up watching it. I feel like I would really like it if I had. But back when I still lived on the Oregon coast, my little hometown of Waldport, I attended community college, and I was having to get as many credits as I could, maintain a good GPA. And one of the extracurricular courses that you could take was a film studies course. I had never I was kind of fresh out of high school. I was like, wow, you can study movies as a class?
Yeah.
That kind of blew my mind. I didn't know that. I never even thought about it. And so I was like, yes, I'm going to fucking do that. And I actually credit that class to basically starting me down my journey of just being obsessed with movies and really taking it seriously as a career, and also doing it stuff like this, doing a podcast. And it's been a fantastic road. But that class basically took 5 famous directors: Fritz Lang, John Huston, Alfred Hitchcock, the Coen brothers, and I think it was Spike Lee. I think those were the 5. I guess technically 6 because it's Coen brothers. And then with each 5 of our filmmakers, we would watch 4 of their movies. And the first for John Huston was The Treasure of the Sierra Madre,
which I still need to see.
If you think that Humphrey Bogart's characters are a little kind of same thing, rinse and repeat, you need to watch Treasure of the Sierra Madre, because I remember thinking, like, I've never seen Humphrey Bogart do a character like this. It's crazy. We also did Maltese Falcon, and we did The African Queen. And I absolutely adored the movie when I saw it. I loved writing an essay about how much I enjoyed it. And rewatching it with you, Zach, was an absolute delight. This movie, I love a trope. You just mentioned, Alexis, is a fantastic trope, but something that I really like is just processes.
Yeah.
I like to watch someone start a task, and then we see them do the task, and then we see them complete it. Like, I don't know why, but for me, one of the most exciting parts of this movie is them trying to mend the prop shaft and the propeller.
Of course, you love that. You love some good shaft work.
I was like, well, how are they gonna weld it? And then and they even talk about it like, well, okay, we tie it together. And Humphrey Bogart all night, he's like, well, it's just gonna like fly off if you tie it together. And then they actually end up welding it because Katharine Hepburn's like, we should fucking weld that shit. I'm using the right term, right? Is it welding? He's like, oh yeah, you old girl. And it's great. And then you start to see the propeller going again. I'm like, oh my God, they did that. And just watching them complete this adventure is absolutely a delight. And something that we learned in that course that I took was that making The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, which I believe preceded The African Queen. I think it was a movie that John Huston did before it.
Yeah, it was before this.
They tried an experiment because John Huston talks about how alienated he feels shooting on studio backlots and sound stages, because he doesn't like being surrounded by those irksome executives in suits. He doesn't like, he thinks he feels persecuted by it, however you want to define that or whatever. But so for The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, it's an old Western that takes place in Mexico, and they went and shot in the mountains of Mexico. All location work for the most part.
Which was not the norm at this time.
Which is not the norm at all. And so it was a very popular film. It's one of my favorites. I keep trying to find it on Blu-ray, but I can't find it anywhere. If you know of a place that sells Treasure of the Sierra Madre on Blu-ray,
filmnaturespod@gmail.com.
please send it, because I've been looking for it for like 6 years. Then they do The African Queen. Now, to get them as far as possible from the United Artists and the backlots of Paramount or Warner Brothers or what have you, they actually shot this in the Congo and Uganda. And they did some stage work in England as well for a lot of, because you'll notice there's a lot of shots where it looks like they've got like not green screen, but like a projector screen behind them.
Well, also this wouldn't have shot on a studio backlot because this wasn't a studio film.
That's right.
This was independently financed.
Which is pretty nuts to think about. So Sam Spiegel really worked his magic.
Yeah,
with this.
Sam Spiegel, a man who, on the making of documentary, is described as that he was convinced that unpleasantness was what was required in a good producer.
Interesting. Yeah, I read an article about Sam Spiegel for this, and
who is credited on this as SP Eagle.
Yeah, there's a picture of him on set. And it's absolutely hilarious because he's a bit of a portly fellow.
Yeah, he was a heavyweight boxer at one point.
And he is absolutely dressed in the most colonial-looking safari outfit that you can imagine. He's wearing shorts where the belt is like midway through his stomach. Like really high-waisted shorts. White socks that go up to his knees.
Hell yeah.
He's wearing a safari shirt and a pith helmet. And when he showed up on set, everyone burst out laughing.
Listen, ladies, you may not like it, but that's what peak male performance looks like.
It's sad but true. Now, another interesting caveat to production that I didn't know about until I read Christopher McQuarrie's little mini essay about it.
Yeah, if you're on Letterboxd and you're not following Chris McQuarrie, director of the last, three Mission Impossible movies?
Soon to be 4.
Yeah. Go follow him. He's just so many insights.
I found out that apparently part of this whole trip to the Congo and Uganda was so that John Huston, an avid outdoorsman, which is code for hunter, wanted to bag his elephant. He wanted to shoot an elephant.
There was some pushback on the making of documentary on this notion from John Huston's son, but it was from John Huston's son, and just about everyone else involved in the production said he wanted to shoot an elephant.
There are behind-the-scenes pictures of him in his tent with like 8 rifles that he was always polishing and getting ready. And apparently, according to legend, they would not start shooting until John Huston got himself an elephant. He's like, we're not shooting until I get an elephant. Otherwise, it's just going to be bad luck. We're not going to start shooting until I shoot an elephant. But thankfully for animal conservation, John Huston is a bit of a lousy shot because he was so inebriated during the entire time of shooting that the bagging of the elephant never came. So apparently Humphrey Bogart started like complaining enough because he was also incredibly drunk. Which we should go into really quickly.
Since it is our big topic.
Yes. Humphrey Bogart as an alcoholic in this movie, not playing one, he is one. Because this was back in the day where alcoholism was not seen as like a real issue. I mean, that's just what people did. They just drank so much.
It's what you did as a man.
That's what you did as a woman. I mean, you watch Oppenheimer. She's drinking the whole fucking time. Like, this wasn't the male thing. This was just a 1940s, 50s, 30s, 60s, 70s,
maybe the 80s a little
people
bit.
started doing blow, and then the 90s we had Frasier. So
LOL.
things changed, but back in the day, just drinking all the time was a normal thing. And so shooting in the jungle is like a big problem because there's a lot of, things that you're going to encounter. And one of those things is malaria and dysentery. And apparently the entire crew and cast got either malaria or dysentery from like drinking local water supplies, except for John Huston and Humphrey Bogart.
Because they're drinking alcohol.
Because they were drinking whiskey and gin so much. Even Katharine Hepburn in her book saying, I shot a movie in the jungle and I nearly lost my mind. She released that's like an autobiography in the 1980s. She talked about how John Huston and Humphrey Bogart lined their stomach with such vile ills that nothing dare touch them. Because she kept giving them shit.
That's a hell of a turn of phrase.
She's very much like her character, where she was not happy with the amount of drinking happening. Like, it's uncouth and it's not very gentlemanly. But Bogart and Huston ended up getting the last laugh because during the pipe organ scene, and did you hear this, Zach?
No.
So in the very beginning of the movie, you open up, you get this chapel because her and her brother are missionaries, and they're...
When we started the movie, I was not convinced I was going to like it because I was like, am I about to be rooting for this fucking white missionary British dude?
Oh my God,
have to
I was like, not the missionaries.
One of the best things this movie does is kill that character off real quick.
He kicks it real fast.
So she's playing the pipe organ, and she looks really thin, and she looks like she's sweating, and she was, and because off camera, next to the pipe organ, there is a pail where in between takes, she was actually vomiting into a bucket, wiping her mouth, take 2. Puke, wipe the mouth, take 3. So when you watch that scene and she doesn't look like she's doing well, it's because she
has dysentery.
She has dysentery.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh,
so,
Jesus. Actually, side note that when I finished this movie a few minutes before we started the podcast, I wanted to write a really quick review. And then I thought better of it. I was like, maybe that's too mean. But my review was going to be, thank God her brother died so she could go have a goddamn adventure.
Yeah, absolutely. Abso-fucking-lutely. Well, I think that story...
Pray for the queen. Some tea, please.
His trembling British lip just like drove me nuts.
It tells you that he ain't gonna make it.
Yeah, it's like it's not good.
So, real quick about the actual plot of this film.
Yeah. Which you're a big fan of.
I was so surprised when I learned what this was gonna be about. Because they get on, the German army comes and burns down this village where they have this chapel. Katharine Hepburn's character, Kate, I believe?
Yeah, I think so. No, Rosie.
Rosie.
Rose.
Yeah, Rosie and Charlie. She gets on the boat, the African Queen, and her and Charles set off down the river, and they stop under this tree, and he's like, "Oh, we could wait out the war here." And she's like, "What do you have on the African Queen that the Germans would so want to get their hands on?" And he's like, "Oh, well, I've got all these explosives and detonators and these big canisters of oxygen and hydrogen." And then Katharine Hepburn says, "I want you to build a torpedo." And he's like, "I can't build a torpedo. The insides of a torpedo are very complex." And she's like, "But that's all to shoot a torpedo.
That's to propel it
That's
along
to
the
propel
water.
it. You could make the torpedoes with this." And he's like, "I suppose, but
I suppose you're right there, Mish.
What would we do with that?" And she says, "We're gonna ram the African Queen into a German ship and turn it into a torpedo and blow it up." And I turned to Mick and I was like, "That's what this movie is about?
Okay.
This is a jungle Mission Impossible? Are you kidding me?" And it's so exciting. This movie is just phenomenally paced. You get great, dialogue rapport between Bogart and Hepburn as their relationship develops, and she starts to fall in love with both him and the life of a riverboat captain.
Fantastic.
She's
so
literally
fucking
getting
funny.
horny.
She's
She
in
gets
heat.
horny after they go through rapids on the
Yes!
boat. Oh my
I love
god!
that part. I love how excited
said-
she was afterwards.
Yeah,
I said, look, the whole repressed sexuality, and I said his boat is a synonym for his raging manhood, because she's when she's pumping it and he's helping her pump up, this is so overtly
it does
sexual.
look like she's jacking the boat off.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
How is my steering?
You get some moments that the Hays Code really starts to pay off.
That's what I
also-
said. I was like, the Hays Code is a curse, but also a blessing, because you get bits like that.
It's just so
that
funny
are just so lovely.
to me every time that a woman gets so she goes off the deep end a little, and then the man immediately has to be like, "Oh my god, you're too much now." He has Humphrey Bogart's character, after she's pretty much wet and wild after the rapids, is
She
telling her
literally said-
calm down, Missy, you need to calm down, we're not gonna that was crazy. And she was like, wasn't it wonderful though?
Yeah.
Yeah, she literally says the line, "I've rarely felt such stimulation from physical experience."
Yes. It's
We know, baby.
fantastic.
Wow.
I know. It's fun seeing her blossom just into she's never had an adventure like this. She's never felt this rush of adrenaline, this drive,
Well,
this
that
purpose.
poor-
It's just it's fantastic.
Poor woman. This is World War One, and you can tell based on her her dress that's kind of Edwardian fashion. So 1910, 1914, whatever. And right before that was the Victorian era. So when she was young, she was being raised in the Victorian era, a completely repressed sexually time period. And then she went to fucking Africa with her brother, and I don't know how long she was fucking there with her brother, but she's not lived a very interesting life.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, really stingy, hot, sweaty, miserable life there at that little chapel.
I also want to talk a little bit about what this movie meant for the careers of Hepburn, Bogart, and Huston, because they made this movie kind of right around the time where they, along with a bunch of other actors, they had been linked to leftist actions in the United States, and this was right around the time of McCarthyism, and they and the House of Un-American Activities Committee, and they went to Washington to essentially protest this, and that put them in hot water in Hollywood, getting them suspected of being Russian sympathizers and communists.
It was just a red herring.
So, indeed. But this movie, in some ways, was kind of a strategic move for them to get some heat off of them, because it portrays them as these, even if they're, a Canadian and fucking Canadian, a Canadian.
How
and
you
a
doing
Brit.
there, miss? By golly.
The least believable aspect of this movie is that Humphrey Bogart is from Canada.
Originally supposed to be Cockney.
Oh my God.
The original script, Allnut is supposed to be a Cockney character, and Humphrey Bogart said, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, also, all nut is what my boxers were when I woke up in high school. But this movie was kind of a strategic move to portray them as patriots, so that they would get some heat off of them in Hollywood, which I found interesting. And also, I think it's cool that they were all on the right side of history,
Exactly.
unlike Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah, I mean, we are all kind of united in our real hesitance to ever celebrate Elia Kazan, as good of a filmmaker as he was, but he was a fucking rat.
Yeah, fuck that guy. I'll tell you how hesitant I am to celebrate him. I ain't ever going to do it.
Yeah. So partly why I've always been a big Bogey fan is because I found out that he didn't fucking play any of those fucking games. He's like, this is all bullshit. I'm not doing that. And so it's nice to know that he was just such a soft-hearted lefty.
Yeah, good man. Also, apparently had like a truly pretty good relationship with Lauren Bacall,
His wife.
Yeah, who was
lovely.
there on this set.
On set, yeah.
Yeah, she apparently was helping with cooking at camp and was helping take care of people who got dysentery. Like they were just, together. They were a true power couple.
What's nice is that book that Katharine Hepburn wrote about being in the jungle, the making of the African Queen. She talks about my time in the jungle with Bogart, Huston, and Bacall.
Yeah.
Like even though she's not in the movie at all, she was an integral part of the making of it, which is like really impressive.
Yeah.
And I also found out, speaking of which, so to save money that they didn't really have because they spent so much of it on fucking going into the jungle and traveling there with boats, they didn't have like grip crew. They didn't have like the main film crew that you need. So I found out that Katharine Hepburn not only was the lead of this film, she also took over costume supervising duties.
Oh, wow.
Like she didn't design the costumes, but like once they were there, she was like, no one is keeping this shit clean. I guess I gotta fucking do it. I guess I gotta keep track of all this stuff and just kind of step to it. And a lot of the people that were like PAs or there's people that are helping out were all local hires, Ugandan people they were either timber folks. They either worked in the mines or
What's
they were
a
just
timberman want with being a PA?
But yeah, there's a lot of just like behind the scenes footage. Just like everyone that's like working on set is African, which is pretty cool.
Oh.
Yeah, in fact, actually, not so cool. But
Are you going to bring up the catering?
no, you can bring up the catering. I'm going to bring up the bathroom situation. So the bathroom situation apparently was not good because the lavatories that they had, quote unquote, it's a dark place inside. Well, it's very hot. What kind of creatures like dark places? Tends to be pythons and poisonous snakes. So quite often when crew would go to use the bathroom, and it's not just crew, like Humphrey Bogart and John Huston and Bacall did not have their own like VIP bathroom. It's just the shit box.
Katharine Hepburn did.
Katharine Hepburn did, which is probably why she was a little bit more merry about shooting in the jungle. to the point of, so they're shooting on the actual river. They're on a boat. Well, in order for Katharine Hepburn's toilet to come with the crew that's floating down the river, there was usually 3 or 4 guys who were in charge of floating the toilet behind the boat down the river. Like, they're in the water, like, escorting her toilet, which is why Katharine Hepburn ended up getting the nickname on set, the Queen of Thrones. Because... yeah, everyone had to carry around her lavatory everywhere she went.
That's so funny.
Yeah. But
Honestly,
tell us about the catering.
Okay. So, apparently, there was not a ton of accessible food where they were shooting. Not super surprising. So, they were like, okay, we need to hire someone to go hunt game for this production. You know, I believe they said, like...
Because we can't rely on John Huston. He's a lousy shot.
Yeah. Yeah. So they hire some local guy to hunt.
Every good production
Game.
story starts with, so they hired some local guy.
Yeah. And you
Only
know,
good things.
Wouldn't you know it? He starts bringing them meat, and they've got kind of this big pot for like a meat stew at the camp.
Oh, God. I don't like where this is going.
And then apparently, I believe this was in the Congo. Apparently, then a bunch of like local authorities show up like a few weeks into this guy working there and take him away. And
I haven't heard this.
John Huston is like, why did you take this guy away?
What are you doing with our cook?
And they say, well, in some neighboring villages to here, people have been going missing.
Uh-oh.
So this guy was killing people and feeding them to the crew of the African Queen.
Shut
and
up.
That's a real story. That's a real story that John Huston, the director of this film, told.
This meat stew is mighty yar.
Yeah. So the people working on this movie were unknowingly eating people. So, you know, when we say that there has never been a jungle film where production has gone well, this might be the most troubling production of any jungle film ever.
That's
because,
not funny, but wow.
It's a little funny.
That's crazy.
They were eating people.
It's like that episode
They ate people.
It's like that episode from Always Sunny in Philadelphia where they realize they might be eating meat, and now they realize, oh my God, we have a hankering for it. We need to get as much. We have the hunger. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So listeners, if you're following this month, we are doing a river jungle trilogy, and this is our second. The first one was Apocalypse Now. We're going to finish with another one where things did not go well either. But basically, the whole moral of this boat month is jungle movies are hard to do. They are mighty hard to do. Yeah, because apparently there's also something. So you have to encounter leeches in the jungle because there were just lots of them. We get a scene of leeches in the movie. But there's also a thing called blood flukes, which also apparently kept finding their way into their food. And so I looked up, blood flukes are a parasitic nematode that exists like in stagnant water that sometimes were used for drinking water or to cook with. So they were eating blood flukes.
What the fuck is that? What does that mean? Like, what did they do? You keep saying blood flukes like I'm supposed to know what that is.
I told you, it's a parasitic nematode that gives you disease and will give you malaria, apparently.
See, that's what I needed to know. The malaria part.
Yeah.
You need to cut to the malaria part.
Dude, it's fine. It's just eat your blood flukes.
Yeah,
it's fine.
They
Don't
were
worry
also
about it.
having problems with these little types of worms called jiggers, which apparently they're kind of like a tick in that they'll like burrow into you, and if you pull them out, the head might stay and once again give you disease.
Yeah.
They got one into Humphrey Bogart's foot. And they had to have a better local guy than the guy who was, doing their catering.
Bring back the cook.
Don't bring back the cook.
LOL.
You're gonna use
I'll deal with that foot.
I know you're gonna say you're gonna use that foot there.
Who held a cigarette up to the bottom of Bogart's foot to scare the thing, and then they, pulled it out.
Nice.
And also soldier ants were another big problem where they, at one of their camps, there were so many soldier ants getting into the tents that they dug a trench around the living quarters, filled it with gasoline and lit it on fire so that the ants couldn't get across.
The things that people end up doing in the jungle, like, we had to do it. We had to make a mote of fire.
Weirdly, this seems like the set where, the crew was kind of in the best spirits of any jungle movie I've heard about, because they were all dudes who had fucking fought in World War II.
That's true.
Recently, a few years ago. So they were like, this is
not so
all right.
bad. Yeah.
Not a big deal.
That's not so bad. No one's shooting at us, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we talked about briefly the leech scene, which is really tough. Apparently, the original plan, unbeknownst to Humphrey Bogart, so when he's pulling the boat through the reeds, these really tall grass, kind of like bamboo, as the river starts to
it's towards,
meld into the boat.
Yeah, it's towards when
lake.
they reach the lake.
And he's in the water towing the African Queen, and it's a real arduous task, and it's really tough. And there's that great scene where after he comes out of the water and he's covered in leeches, Rose helps him get it all off, and he's just he's freaking out. And then they keep trying to go on, and Rosie and Alna look at each other and realize, oh, fuck. You have to go back in the water, and you see Katharine Hepburn just have this look of I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, and it fucking hits me. I don't know what that is, but it's such a powerful scene. But unbeknownst to Humphrey Bogart, the plan that John Huston had was
I know what the fucking plan John Huston had was.
We're gonna cover Humphrey Bogart in leeches.
Oh, no shit, you don't say.
And Humphrey Bogart made it very clear he was quite inebriated and was holding a bottle kind of threateningly at John Huston, going,
No.
I've made it clear I have a very serious phobia of leeches.
Yeah, they're creepy.
I get it from my father. He doesn't like leeches. I don't like leeches. The Bogarts don't fuck with leeches, John. And John Huston thought it would be funny if the next day...
I don't want to know what John Huston thinks is funny.
The next day, John Huston brings on a leech breeder who has hundreds of leeches. And when Humphrey Bogart hears this, news gets to him at camp, the night before, that, John Huston's bringing a leech breeder tomorrow. Apparently stuff happened where John Huston was like, okay, Humphrey, I won't put leeches on you. Just put the gun down. Whatever happened, we don't know. But when they actually shot the scene, those are rubber leeches that are on Humphrey Bogart, except for the close-up. The close-up where you see a leech actually coming off, that is a real leech, but that is a body double.
Yeah.
Alexis, you had something?
At the end of The Fabelmans, the director that he meets, who is that?
No, that's John Ford.
It's John Ford. Okay.
Yeah.
So...
Who, by the way, he also has a river boat movie that I kind of want to cover maybe next year. It's about steamboats. It's about steamboats racing on the Mississippi.
What's it called?
Boy.
I forget what it's called, but it gets really good reviews.
It's called Mix Wet Dream.
It's called Mix Wet Dream, directed by John Ford.
Yeah, it's weird that he called that shot back in the 50s. I want to talk a little bit about Huston as a guy, because apparently he was born with an enlarged heart.
I've heard that.
Yeah, and as a young boy was not allowed by doctors to go outside. and would like look out his window and be like, I wish I could go outside.
Mr. Grinch, he is not.
Yeah. So one night he apparently snuck out of his house because there was a little like river behind his home. And he somehow like got out on the river. I think he was maybe just swimming. And what he did not realize was that the river turned into a waterfall. And he went over it. And he survived. And from then on, he sort of had an attitude towards danger that you run towards it and then it won't hurt you, which I feel like maybe carried over into his attitude towards this production.
Yeah, he served in the military as a documentary filmmaker it was either the European theater or the Pacific theater, I forget which one, but during World War II, he was out there with a camera.
Yeah.
Great documentary called Five Came Back that Steven Spielberg helped produce. It's very good.
Oh, interesting.
John Ford was another one of them.
Yeah, and...
Wilder.
Yeah, Wilder, Capra, right?
Yeah, Frank Capra was one of them. Yeah.
So now I feel bad that we don't know who the fifth guy is.
I don't know.
Michael Bay.
He did come back.
The other person I want to talk about a little bit is James Agee, who was the co-writer on this movie.
Oh, okay.
Who also co-wrote fucking On the Waterfront and some other stuff. But he was our famed jungle heart attack. We got another one on this movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he had a heart attack while making this movie. He, was a heavy smoker, a heavy drinker, as many people involved in this film were. And apparently, a few days after his heart attack, Huston visited him in the hospital. This was probably before they were actually in the jungle. But I do think that it's funny that there's another heart attack tied to our jungle movie. And apparently he asked John Huston, give me a cigarette. And John Huston was like, well, James, I can't do that. I think that would upset your doctor. And James was like, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. And then he died a year and a half later.
Should have given him the cigarette.
Yeah, listen, it was a year and a half. Let him enjoy it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Speaking of, if we're going to talk about writing, I want to talk about the fantastic relationship between Rosie and Charlie Allnut.
As Alexis stated, an uptight lady and a scoundrel.
Yes.
What's better than that?
Love it.
Absolutely. Apparently, Bogart was not super hot on this character because it was so unlike everything else that he's done. Like, he's not a headstrong guy. He's not really in charge. Like, something that I really like about this movie is, due to the dynamics that begin to blossom, like, all of the brilliant ideas that drive the story are hers.
Yeah.
She's doing this. So, like, it's a boat film. He is the captain,
She's
the boss. She's the fucking boss. And he very quickly his character realizes that dynamic is what works best here.
Yeah.
And they fall into their roles. And that's why they have such a good relationship. Like, once like the halfway mark comes, they're on each other's side the whole way because they understand the dynamics, which is she's in fucking charge.
Yeah,
he's the captain, she's the boss.
Apparently, James Agee based these characters off of his parents.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what I found out is when Humphrey Bogart, they're doing the movie, he's like, I don't know. He's taking it seriously because it's a job and everything, but he's like, I don't know if I'm hot on this character. But apparently when they shot the scene where he is like really drunk, visibly drunk, because I'm sure he was really drunk for a lot of other stuff.
The scene where he's like actually so clearly sauced.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that because, so obviously why gin is so prevalent in, like, let's say British culture is because, like, they would colonize like a lot of places that had things like malaria and dysentery, and so they couldn't drink the water, which is why gin and tonics became such a popular cocktail. It's because you can inoculate water with gin. It makes it safe to drink.
Are you telling me my gin and tonics are the drink of colonizers?
Unfortunately so, but
yes.
they will help protect you from some disease.
So in the scene where he's really sauced, and if you see the movie, you know the one we're talking about. It's the one that precedes the scene that inspired Pirates of the Caribbean Jack Sparrow fame. He dips his glass into real river water, right? Because the boat's on a river. They're shooting on a river, and it comes up brown. He then, Humphrey Bogart then takes a bottle of gin, glug, 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 fills it up so he like doubles the amount of volume of liquid, and then drinks on camera. I really believe that he just dipped into the river, took a bottle of not prop gin,
There's no way that's prop gin.
and just drinks it on camera, and then he's absolutely plastered like for the rest of the scene. And like it's absolutely incredible to behold. But apparently it was that scene and then the one preceding it where then she's dumping it out and you just see that such a tragic shot where the camera's on that floating bottle and it just comes back and you see all these bottles just like floating off. That John Huston described, that was when Humphrey Bogart really understood, what this character really was. And they got really into it and ended up falling in love with that dynamic that his character had with Rosie.
Wow, I thought you were going to say he fell in love with the dynamic his character had with gin.
He was already deeply in love. He was deeply in love. He's entrenched.
There's such a funny line when they finally get out onto the lake. They've been stuck in the reeds, and then this rain comes and lifts the African queen.
Yeah.
And they're out on the lake.
The breeze coming off the lake.
The breeze is coming, and then Bogart just goes, this breeze, well, I know you don't approve, but it's like a glass of gin. his reference for something good is alcohol.
I also love it early on in the film where she's talking about how she spends, how she would always spend her Sunday, which is in the house of the Lord and worshiping and that stuff. And he just kind of laughs and goes, yeah, not me, miss. Usually on a Sunday morning, I'm nursing
on Sunday afternoons, I was always sleeping one off.
Same.
He's just so charming.
Real.
Yeah, honestly.
It's weird to be awake right now.
It's like, I find their chemistry so charming and contagious. I don't know. Their dynamics just completely work for me. And just exactly how we talked about before, how exhilarated she gets at going down the Whitewater Rapids where she's literally like dabbing her hot cheeks. Like, good God. Like, I do believe I am falling in love with boating. Oh, that line, man. And I also love when she's like talking about like the boiler and he's like, why do you kick it? Why don't you remove the screwdriver that's in there? Well, I thought about that, miss, but I kind of like kicking her. Gives me something to do. And she said something. He's like, well, miss,
the trouble with you, miss, is you don't know anything about boats. I swear to God, Mick has said that.
I love it. I looked at Zach when he said that line. I was like, God, I love Boat Month. Like,
God.
So good.
Alexis, I have an important question for you since this hasn't really come up yet on the episode, and I kind of want to know your thoughts. Mm-hmm. Anybody hot in this movie?
Yeah, no. It was surprising. It was surprisingly, unsurprisingly lacking.
I disagree. I think that Katharine Hepburn kind of doing it for me in this movie. Like, look, I'm not gonna say my usual horny for Hepburn thing, but when they are bathed, the look that they're both giving me right now is fantastic.
Usual?
Yeah, that's the thing. My catchphrase. I'm horny for Hepburn.
So disrespectful to either of the Hepburns.
All right, I feel like I know that I'm being gaslit, but please proceed.
So when they're deciding like, oh, we're gonna bathe, it's like, well, no harm done if I don't look at you. And then he proceeds to like keep trying to like sneak a peek, like, you scoundrel, you dirty dog. They're undressing, but you can't see Hepburn undressing because due to the Hays Code and stuff, you can't see anything. But Hepburn was too much of a lady to show anything like that. She's behind the smokestack of the boiler, so you can't see her undressing. And then she dunks into the water, and they're swimming around. They're having a good little time. And then she tries to get back up on the boat.
Dude, when she swings her legs up like that was so funny.
The way she's Lock the door. Lock the door. Lock the door. No.
Hey guys, how's it going? So I really haven't been on the podcast for a long time. Hi, it's me, Quentin Tarantino.
No.
Now, the thing about African Queen, it's an absolute classic, and the really groovy scene when Hepburn's in the water, and she lifts her foot, and the foot is up there on the back.
Quentin.
I'm seeing the foot,
Quentin,
and it's
hold
wet.
on.
It's soaking wet.
Quentin.
It's so wet. It's glistening in the water.
It's
on
probably
the
Quentin, I
Quentin,
can't believe I'm going to say this, Quentin, but I'm absolutely there with you.
Thank you. Now, listen,
I'm absolutely there with you.
I don't like to brag about how many insights I have into feature feet, film and feet, fucking feet.
All right, Quentin, it's been fun.
Okay.
It's been fun.
I'm gonna go watch The African Queen. I love the show, guys. Love the show.
Go back to writing your next movie. Figure it out. But yes, I think Quentin Tarantino, he kind of summarizes best what I was about to say, which is seeing her try to grapple onto the boat was kind of hot. I just, you don't usually see Hepburn's feet, and what a mighty fine pair she has.
God. I, for the record, do not condone Quentin barging in here like that.
I know.
I think it's rude.
Listeners-
He's got to... I never schedule him, he says I might pop by, and I'm like, you need to be more specific than that.
Yeah.
You need to ask. There's a vetting process.
For the record, listeners, Zach actually, he's like the most anti-Quentin coming on this show all the time, but, it slips by.
It happens. I locked the door, but today I slipped.
But yeah, speaking of Hepburn and the boiler, I found out there was almost a near catastrophe that happened. So at one point, on the boat, they had a couple different versions of it, and one of them, the boiler, it's not an actual steam-powered boat. It's more of just like a glorified raft that they put a copper boiler on top of, and they had to move it on the deck of the boat because a camera needed a new position, and they're gonna have to put the camera where the boiler is, and so they didn't have the boiler attached to the surface of the boat. They move the camera again, don't move the boiler back, and the boat starts hitting like some choppy waters, and this copper boiler almost tips over and crushes Katharine Hepburn because they weren't using stunt doubles for this bit. And like some other crew and Bogart are like trying so hard to like not have this boiler like tip onto her. Just like shooting in the jungle on a river is going to be
wild.
It's not going to be great.
Yeah.
But it is a magnificent achievement in the end, what they created.
I mean, Bogart also had to help a bunch of the crew guys because one night, one of their versions of, I think it was the version that they shoot the like exteriors of the boat.
Yeah.
The actually to scale African Queen, sunk.
Oh yeah.
And like 30 crew guys, including Bogart, had to like grab ropes and like hang them over a tree branch and tie them to the boat and like just use, manpower to pull the boat out of the river.
Yeah, I heard that a prop person told or John Huston, like, that it's sinking. It's like,
Yeah, I believe that.
Whatever. But another scene that I really love is where they're sleeping in the rain, and poor Charlie Allnut, he's just a wet dog. He's just underneath a blanket. And she's underneath, like, she's made like a little mini, like, bedroom for herself.
Yeah, they have like a canopy at the time.
At the time, that little makeshift, like, bed curtains. And he's just, like, soaking wet, and he's kind of shivering, and he just, like, kind of goes in. He's trying to be a gentleman, and she just wakes up, and he's in her, like, little makeshift bed chamber. And she's just so offended. And he's like, Allnut, you get out of here this instant. And he just...
All right, miss.
He just hobbles out. And then she looks out and like realizes why he's in there and goes, "Oh, Allnut, you can come inside." And then he just like comes back in.
Hobbles back
I'm
in.
sorry, miss, I'm sorry, miss, if I gave you a scare. It's nice to see. I don't know. This is a feel good movie that I really appreciate.
It's a charming film.
It is.
Can we talk about the ending a little bit?
Yes, because that's one of my favorite bits in the movie.
The bit where so the African Queen is out on the lake, the water gets choppy, it sinks, and they get picked up by the German ship that they're trying to sink.
Yeah.
And they're about to be hanged. And then you see as they're about to be hanged, the African queen is still kind of floating a little bit above the surface of the water, and one of the torpedoes is sticking out of it. And the German ship is heading right for it. And then Bogart asks if the German ship captain can marry them.
Right.
Because, that's something a ship's captain can do.
Captain of the Louisa.
And they kind of go back and forth, and the German guy eventually agrees, and they say their vows, and then the German ship captain goes, "I now pronounce you man and wife. Proceed with the execution."
So good, yeah. Which you might recognize that actor from Dr. Strangelove, who plays the spy that ends up getting in a fight in the war room, and there's no fighting allowed in the war room.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great sequence. And we didn't really talk about it, but the reason why they would need to blow up the Louisa, this German ship that has this massive cannon, and I love the bit, which it could have been its own movie, but apparently the Germans broke the Louisa up into chunks, brought it over by land, put it together again, and then put it on this lake. And it's the main crossing, very strategically placed so that people like, the British Army, the French Army, they can't cross it because they don't have any firepower that can equal what the Germans have in the Louisa, which is why immediately, as soon as Rosie hears this earlier in the film, she's like, well, we got to take that fucker out because otherwise we're not going to be able to get home. And then we also need to help, we need to help our countrymen. Like, we need to help beat the Germans. So not only is it for their own good, but
Now, Alexis, what's going on your end?
what is happening?
Is there a killing happening?
No, there was I think an ambulance that went by, and now all 5 dogs are in an uproar.
Well, that was a fascinating glimpse into the home life of our host, Alexis Avizia.
Jesus.
Yes, it was.
It's nice for you to let the dogs out.
And my God, were they barking.
Quentin loves it.
He does. He's a big fan of the dogs. But yeah, as I was saying, that's why this whole adventure happens. Is to it's not just to blow up a ship or whatever. It does have significance for the overall conflict and also for them to get home. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this film. I might have to buy it on Blu-ray, honestly.
I was thinking the same thing.
Because you can rent it for free on Pluto TV, but we ended up
renting it on Amazon Prime.
Right, and it was really good transfer. It's a really, really good film restoration. The Technicolor is beautiful. I can't really imagine watching this on black and white. But yeah, it was really good.
Was it originally in black and white?
No, it was shot in Technicolor, which apparently was a whole other production issue because
that's right, yeah,
in the 50s and late 40s, Technicolor cameras were massive and cumbersome and loud.
3-strip film, yeah.
Yeah, they had to build like a blimp around the camera, to kind of similar to what they're doing with IMAX cameras now to start making them quieter. They had to build a blimp around the camera, which,
like
is
a cone
difficult.
of silence.
Yeah, it's difficult when you're trying to put said camera on a little pontoon.
Yeah.
Then the cameraman had to have been in the blimp while it's shooting?
I think the blimp just kind of goes around the portion of the camera that like has the film in it, like the motor. I think it's on the outside.
Okay. I'm like, well, the cameraman has to look through, like the lens, right? So.
Yeah, I think the viewfinder's above. I'd have to look at like the actual construction of it.
The what?
Mick, I'm not going to say blimp again. Oh, there it is.
Oh man, I just
what
love
has
to
a
talk
really
about
good
blimps right
blimp
now.
in it?
What? Tell me.
Kiki's delivery service.
Oh God, the blimp in that one is it's pretty voluptuous.
Mick, have you seen Kiki's Delivery Service?
Yes, Alexis showed it to me because it has blimps in it.
Okay.
Well, also it's a really beautiful story, but that's neither here nor there.
Okay.
I'm not. Hey, I don't talk bullshit all the time. I do most of the time, but sometimes when I say things like "I love the blimps and Kiki's Delivery Service," I'm telling the goddamn truth.
I'm sorry for doubting you.
But that is crazy. That's a good a point. Like the fucking the logistics that again were not really done before of shooting on location. Again, everything was done on like backlots of big studios and sound stages. Something that on the Christopher McQuarrie Letterboxd essay that he does about this movie, he points out that this movie really paved the way for other famous movies to like shoot out on location because it wasn't really truly done before this. You know, the only other time was like Treasure of the Sierra Madre, which is John Huston, and that was kind of a dry run. They did this, and
This was a wet run.
this was a wet run, absolutely. And so, you know, like David Lean's
Lawrence of Arabia.
The Bridge on the River Kwai, which is another huge jungle movie, which is fantastic.
I think those I want to check really quick, but I think James Agee was the writer on at least one of those. I need to because both of those movies came up during the making of documentary. No, what was it?
I don't know.
Somebody who it might have been the DP.
Oh, okay.
Someone who worked on this worked on both of those films.
That's crazy. Because, yeah, that talk about, if we want to talk about crazy fucking productions, The Bridge on the River Kwai is insane. I'm a huge David Lean fan. I grew up watching that movie. In fact, there's a type of film that I call Sunday afternoon movies, where it's just like, usually they're classics, usually they're fun to just kind of put on, and they're just absolutely incredible, gripping stories. And The Bridge on the River Kwai and The African Queen, I both count as fantastic Sunday afternoon films. This is a good thing to throw on.
Sam Spiegel produced both of those.
And he was probably wearing a pith helmet, that son of a bitch. But yeah, this was this movie walked so that a lot of other movies could run, you know? And it's a really, really good watch. I really, really enjoyed it. Do we have anything else we'd like to talk about The African Queen? Any parting thoughts here?
Well, I would just say my parting thoughts on this movie are it's, you know, a peak when men were men and men were ugly picture. Even though there's only one man, really, in most of the movie. He's just a guy with a face like a broken-in bicycle seat. And, you know, it's definitely my favorite Bogey performance that I've seen. And, this is a fun movie. If you're avoiding this movie because it's old, don't.
You need to get over that.
One, you need to get over that in general. Two, I think this is a good classic Hollywood movie to watch if you tend to like movies with a more modern sensibility, because it's got a great pace. It's got incredible stunt work. It's exciting. It's fun. It's light. The African Queen, big fucking time recommend for me. I really love this one.
Tight.
Big fan. You know what, to be fair, I have only seen Humphrey Bogart in Sabrina and Casablanca, and both of those roles are very kind of quiet and serious. So it was pretty fun for me to see him in this role this way, little swamp ass man.
He's like a swamp ass man, like salty sea dog going on, because he's not from the sea, because he's a miner, which is why he has all that blasting stuff and like the nitrogen oxygen tanks. But
to be clear, he works in a mine. He's like 58.
Yeah,
I'm kidding. He's probably 52. He didn't make it to 58.
Oh, poor guy.
He did not. He died at 57.
Yeah. Sad. But I'm really happy that my fellow film majors enjoyed it. I hope that our listeners check it out. It's a fantastic time. I think we've all said what needs to be said about it. Damn good film. It's one of those, I think, must-see pictures from this era. And to speak to your point, Zach, about how if you don't want to watch it because it's old, if there's two things that just really drive me crazy about people that say they like movies but they don't watch old movies or they don't watch movies with subtitles, you need to get over yourself, because you are, for your own, not because I find it annoying, but just because you are denying yourself so much amazing filmmaking.
Yeah.
And also, we do find it annoying.
The world is so big. You got to get in there.
Yeah. All right.
Get all up in its guts. Get burrow on in there.
Hashtag horny for Hepburn. All right. Well, I had fun talking about the African Queen.
Where are we going next?
Yeah, Mick, are we continuing upriver?
We are not continuing upriver.
We're going downriver.
We're going downriver. We're going out to sea yet again. We have completed our second leg of our riverboat trilogy, but we're going to head back out to the ocean, and we're going to dock on the Zach dock.
Oh, my God. I love it when someone docks on my dock.
Oh, there's
Great.
5 Fridays this month, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
Oh, I thought this
You
was going
guys-
to be our last one. Alas,
No.
You guys both get 5 Friday months this year.
I get a 5 Friday month next year.
I also get a 5 Friday
Which
month
is good.
next year, which
Yeah.
I'm excited about.
So for this year and next year, boat month is a 5er, baby. But you probably don't give a shit about that. You're probably wondering, what is the next episode, Mick? For Christ's sake, Jesus Christ, just get it out.
Quit spinning your
all right, I'll
wheels.
do it.
Quit slapping your oars.
We are heading out to sea to embark on a treasure-filled adventure with 1996's Brian Henson's The Muppet Treasure Island.
Hey.
This is, as you can tell,
I
Zach
knew
is
this
very
was coming.
excited.
When you're a professional pirate.
There we go. So, yes, I'm throwing some sea bones out there. We gave Alexis Ghost Ship this. Now we're giving Zach Muppet Treasure Island. It's really exciting. And, we just had Comedy Month where we finished off with Tim Curry, and we're going to see him again real soon.
Yeah, it stars Tim Curry and then a few of my favorite actors, Kermit the Frog, Fozzie Bear,
Yep.
Gonzo the Great,
Yep.
Miss Piggy.
Yep. And
I want a sidebar really quick.
I just remembered fucking Billy Connolly's in this. I love that.
Is he the guy who plays the
He's the...
Billy Bones?
No, maybe. I don't remember. We'll find out.
Anyways, I just really want to quick sidebar say it's very funny that you picked a horror movie for the Alexis pick and a children's movie for the Zach pick.
I know. It's like Bizarro World.
When it
Everything's
comes to
upside down.
boats, when it comes to boats, all bets are off.
All bets are off. That's right.
Anything can happen on the high seas. Well, yeah, you can find that movie, I assume, on Disney Plus.
Yes, I'm so sorry I did not mention that. But yes, you can find it on Disney Plus. That's right. Or if you don't have Disney Plus, good for you. Keep that going. But then rent it someplace else.
Yeah, you can rent it or, root around in our garage, and there's probably a VHS of it.
Yeah.
Don't root around in our garage.
No,
You won't like what you find.
you're not going to like it.
But yeah, if you want to find us, the Film Majors, on social media, you can find us at Film Majors Pod on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and at this point, our TikTok is for sure back up.
Yeah, welcome back to the
Film
TikTok.
Majors Pod on there as well.
Please follow us before it gets banned.
Yes, we're going to be posting on there more frequently. Shoot us an email at filmmajorspod@gmail.com. Tell us, who's your favorite Muppet? I want to know.
Yes, and please don't forget, please, for my birthday, mail me a Blu-ray of Treasure of the Sierra Madre. I want to see it.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
And give us a rating.
Yes,
and
follow us. Give us a rating.
Give us a boost in the algorithm.
And also Vyvanse. Give us Vyvanse.
Don't.
Give
Do
me
not
Vyvanse.
give us Vyvanse.
Well, we're gonna give it to. We'll give you some.
For legal reasons, we are not soliciting drugs illegally.
For legal reasons, this is a joke.
Listen to my girlfriend Sloane Pecchia or
I
Sloane
did.
Golden's artist project. She's got her first song out.
Is her last
by now.
name Golden?
Her artist name is Sloane Golden.
Oh, okay.
Also, her mom's maiden name is Goldenberg. So Sloane
Goldenberg.
Goldenberg.
Oh, Goldenberg.
Yeah.
Like the Hindenburg.
No.
One of my favorite flips.
Anyways, yeah, you can find her song on Spotify. I believe the first one that is out is Parking Lot. So yeah, look for that. And with that, let's cast off.
We'll see you on the high seas.
Bye.